Hello there guys, so this will be a Yone against Attrox guide, right? You all can see this is Dzukill, or Dzukill, however you wanna pronounce it. He went for general runes of course, he went for his lethal tempo, right? For all-ins, right? Anything else wouldn't provide that much power. Triumph, general thing, Alacrity, over Bloodline because Bloodline got nerfed and some people do preferring these days the Alacrity since you're gonna stack it up faster and Bloodline is not that rewarding anymore, so that's that, right? Last and standard thing, he has bomb plating over second wind, notice it, he has bomb plating over second wind against a champion like Aatrox, but why would he do that, right? So it's the thing, like Aatrox can poke, but his abilities are highly sidesteppable as well, right? And he generally takes bomb plating to well time his all-ins, right? That's the idea of the bomb plating, so his all-ins are generally better. Then again, he has unflinching because they have some level of CC outside of Aatrox. Now Aatrox has CC, but those are knockups, so not much tenacity can do about that, right? And he has HP, notice, he has HP over armor, but he goes back to armor. Okay, the reason for that is so his early game is a bit stronger, but I would recommend you guys to, over going magic resist or armor, you can definitely go for HP in a matchup where your laner is so weak that you will mostly look to scale, and then eventually the HP will be more rewarding than having some extra armor or some extra MR, right? Okay. Think it's bugged or no.
Să avem o sărbătoare cum știm bine,
well,
cu
that's-
zâmbete, platouri pline. Hochland,
Well,
bucuria
that's-
gustului.
Okay, now the game began. This facing Aatrox, he didn't go D-shield. Notice he didn't go D-shield, right? He went for D-plate because this matchup is all about sidestepping, and if you are as good as the Dzukill at sidestepping, you can definitely get D-plate. If you are bad at sidestepping, you suck in the matchup, I would recommend you to go second wind and D-shield. It's more, you can scale a bit more easily, and I would say it's just like oops. It's just like a general thing that helps you to survive your early game more easily. But I would also recommend you, if you're not too good in this matchup, take Ignite over TP. Especially if you don't know how to use TP, it helps shit ton in this matchup. It allows you to get kills more easily, way more easily on him because his healing is quite high and that extra finishing damage is good on Yone. Aside of that, if you E and you ignite straight up, that ignite damage counts towards the damage of Yone's E, so you will enhance that damage as well, of course, right? Then again, even like in team fights or on the side lane, you will generally shut him down with ignite, and it allows you to snowball your lane more easily. So I would, if you are lower ranked, like Dzukill, right? For a good reason, he goes for TP because in his ranks, nobody falls for the ignite funny. Here's the thing, like in here, if you don't get TP, then what will happen? Aatrox will definitely respect your ignite, and eventually the Dzukill won't be able to follow up a Baron fight with his TP, but Aatrox will be. So let's talk about like what happened in here, right? Let's go back. Okay. Let's reposition the camera as well a tiny bit. Okay. Well, you don't have much, but so in here the fight begins. Attrox leashed apparently, so that means the enemy jungler is on the top side of the map right now, so he's pathing downwards as you can see, but he may be fake leashed as well. We don't know, he could be sitting in here, so it's not 100%, but is there like another way to identify it? Can I move my camera? No, I can't move my camera. So if it's unsure that the enemy top laner fake leashed, you can also check, I mean in here we can't see because of my camera being in the way, but you can check it by looking if the enemy bot lane leashed and if they have missing mana or not, right? Because the thing is, Aatrox has no mana, so even if he used his ability to leash, we can't identify it for 100% because he has no mana, so his mana would be missing if he would be a mana champion, right? So let's go back in here, right? Okay, so the game begins. So in here he's just doing standard thing, he's slow pushing against Attrox, there is no reason to rush. He's just stacking up his queue slowly, so the more points, I mean not the more points, but the more stacks you have in your queue, the more dangerous you will be eventually in level 1, right? Again, you see he's not last hitting minions with his auto attacks, he's last hitting them with his Q. And he's not queuing a whole wave, he's just slow pushing, right? He's not queuing everything, but everything at once, just one thing. Because he wants to maximize his threat early on, right? This is how you are dangerous as Yone. So look at this. So Attrox tries to last it, right? And in here he gets punished a bit because he tried to Q this, right? And just because he was greedy to get a Q off on the minion, he positioned. He was so two things could happen. He zones away the Attrox and he doesn't greets on the minion. He loses one minion. But if he greets, which apparently happens in these 1k LP Challenger games as well, then this can happen. Right, this can totally happen. You also saw like he sidestepped the middle part. Look at his movement. That was like an important movement, right? The middle part sidestep saved him some level of HP. So look, there was like a small sidestep which disallowed Attrox from knocking up Yone and getting the bonus damage on him, which was like a really good sidestep. So when the third Q comes off, you should aim to sidestep. When the first two Q comes at you, you can't really sidestep much usually. The second Q is really hard to sidestep, the first Q is possible, but the third Q is more so important to dodge it with your sidesteps and or your E. And in here he gets heavily punished, right? He won't try to sneak in a Q. In here he's trying to sneak in a Q, but Attrox managed to just outspace it, right? Okay. Even in here he tries to put some pressure on the Attrox. I wouldn't say there is a good reason for that, because problem is like it can, even if the Q connects, I'm not sure what will happen after, because Attrox will go for his empowered auto, then he throws in one Qs. I don't know, this is a bit sketchy as well. I think one of the problems is that he's playing a bit way too aggressively than he should be, because it's 2.2 minutes into the game and he could be really easily ganked level 3 by the enemy jungler, which often gets underestimated. But I wouldn't really recommend to play this aggressively when we are this deep in lane and we have this much amount of HP missing, right? Because we really easily could be collapsed on by the enemy jungler, and that would suck ass eventually, right? So there is like a small macro problem in here, of course, right? Like you can't really play this offensively. Like you definitely have to go all the way downwards and probably just set up a ward if you wanna avoid the level 3 gank. But also, yeah, he does it right now. Hopefully the enemy jungler is not already here, or he recalls. Okay, he gets a cheater recall. Well, something of a cheater recall, because sadly he can't, yeah, he can't get too much value out of it, but he got a refillable. Now, one thing I don't really like, he has lots of missing HP, and here's the thing, if he TPs anyways, he should then TP from the base, so he regenerates this, he shouldn't like walk out all the way, right? Because he has like how much, 140, 50 HP missing, you know? So definitely we could ban, I don't think so he has to hurry. Could ban definitely like TP from base, but that was just a slight tiny bit of mistake, of course. Okay, so in here Attrox is level 3, so he has to be actually a bit more careful about what he does. Of course he gets level 3, so it's not no biggie, and you see he's timed his E to Attrox's third Q. You don't even have to predict it. If you have the reaction time, you can like E in many directions to dodge it, of course, right? So it's not something that really takes you an insane reaction time, right? Now in here he auto attacks. You see he auto attacks in here and then Qs, because the thing is, if you're in auto range, you should auto attack first and not Q, because when somebody will be out of auto attack range, when they walk away from you, from your E, it means that you won't be able to auto attack. So if you Q first, which has a small cast time, then you might miss an auto attack. Side of that, this provides a lethal tempo stacks auto attacking first, which means that you get your Q resetted a bit faster, and the cast time is a bit faster. And the side of that, the Attrox was sidestepping, so it was unclear where to Q as Yone, right? So that means that he had to auto first as well, of course, right? He swings, he doesn't stop, there is no reason for him to stop, right? Yes, and he could then use the refills a bit earlier, but it's not a big deal, of course. Okay. So now he can't really throw his tornado at Attrox because his E is usually up. So in here Attrox is a bit sus because actually the enemy jungler can't really be around, it's 325, most likely he's on the bot side scuttle scrub right now. So in here he lagged a little bit with his side steps, of course, right? So you can see that before Aatrox engages, right? So he went down to ward, but I think this ward is a bit useless, like it's 321, so most likely the enemy jungler is around the bot side scuttle scrub, but we don't know exactly, I didn't see from my own camera where the enemy jungler started, right? It's 100%, so in here he got caught. He just stopped for a slight moment when the Aatrox throwed out the W. It was like a little bit of a sidestepping issue there. What he could also do, he could just then sit between minions, so Aatrox will set up like a push towards him, a freeze, then the minions would soak the Aatrox's W as well. So if you ever fight Aatrox, you can just fight him between your own waves, so he doesn't just W's you for free, and he pushes the wave as well if he wants to trade, which eventually puts him in a shitty spot because he's already low HP, and it's just not good for him to be too deep into the lane when Diana could be around. And yep. Then he is pushing as fast as he can because he knows Diana is here for a reason. Now he could then push a bit earlier as well. Like if I go back here, he already can see that Diana is patting upwards. Maybe he didn't notice it, but since Diana was already coming, should then push it a bit earlier than he does, right? I wouldn't hesitate on pushing as fast as I can, like even now, even before. Diana is patting towards us, so we want to speed up this push, right? We can't really push this slowly, of course, right? That's my opinion, of course. Because two things could happen, you know, with IFIM, or you get the cheater's recall. I mean, either way it's fine. Oh, his cancel got recalled. I mean, his recall got cancelled. Okay. He gets his tornado, he doesn't last, it's really important. Now, in here what he will do, he will E from this area, so he gets out. He will take the aggro, of course, he will take the aggro. Let's see how they play it out, right? It looks really smart, he hits the Diana, so he heals a little bit up before he gets dived, but most likely is dead. No? He couldn't guess it. He couldn't guess it, right? But there is one thing he could then do. So in here he's playing a game of guessing with his Q, like you have to kind of like predicting these players when they have this type of side steps, like where to Q, right? What he could then do, instead of trying to play a game of guessing, of predicting, of course, right? What he could then do, he could then actually just tornado when Aatrox throws his third Q, and when he's in his Q animation, it's really likely that you're actually gonna hit it, right? Because he stays in one spot. So in here he could be a bit more patient, from my opinion, right? Or he could ban even out, like he has still time on his Q, right? And in here he messed up a tiny bit, but I guess he didn't have too much time, so he felt like he had to commit, but it's fine. I think in there he could ban auto Q really easily, and I do believe Aatrox would be dead, right? Let's see. Let's check. Yep. And in here could ban auto Q. I do believe that would kill, right? That would definitely kill. I guess he didn't really have the reaction time to flash for that, right? Yep, that's a bit unfortunate. But I think eventually they pick it up anyways, right? Yep, they do, but it's a... Oh no, Diana, where are you running at? Could be a 1-for-1 though, right? Yeah. So in here he is just taking the wave, of course. If there is no danger from the enemy jungler towards you, you can definitely get these things, right? Worst case scenario, might just tornado out. They messed up a tiny bit with the cannon minion. If you would get the cannon minion, he could actually get like boots, right? Which is kind of a bummer not having boots, of course. So he had like a little bit of last hitting issue there, not a big deal, of course, right? So if you go back a tiny bit in here, he... Like, I can see with my own eyes, by the way, that cannon would actually miss, because I've been playing a Yone a lot, and I can see that this, like, you don't have this amount of damage on your auto attack, so if he waits a tiny bit, he would have Berserker boots, which would really flip over the matchup, more so than just buying, like, dagger and boots, right? Because it provides more attack speed, more mobility. It's a really solid, really strong item on Yone, right? So it's just like a tiny bit of a mess up, of course, which leads into not buying boots, right? Okay. Possibly he couldn't judge it that he doesn't like kills it with his auto attack, but it's not a big deal, of course, right? Now what another thing is there, like Diana wouldn't die there and the dive wouldn't be so risky if he had Ignite as well, of course, right? So that's like one thing as well to consider, but then again, if you wouldn't have TP, he wouldn't arrive so quickly in the lane. So there are ups and downs. There are definitely ups and downs. Okay, so Attrox wards, he pushed the wave, he TP'd, he pushed the wave or two, and he recalled. That's weird. Okay, probably got some power spike item by chance, right? Okay, so Yone is right now just last sitting, mostly waiting for the Attrox. Now, so he had like 1k in his inventory. As I said, it's a bit bad not having Berserker, right? The mobility really valuable against the skill shot champion like Attrox. The attack speed really valuable on Yone. Now let's see what happens in here. Stacks up his tornado, last hits with tornado again. So in here he's looking to E forward, right? So now he has the second part of his Q, the Attrox, right? So he's actually like posturing a bit aggressively in here. Now the Attrox knows for a reason that Yone is 6 soon, so he shouldn't really force anything, right? Okay. Attrox tries to last it. Okay. Okay. He gets like a good QW down on the Attrox. He uses his E because there is not much reason to hold into his E. Like, oh. Yeah, it hurts a tiny bit. That hurts a tiny bit. So now he gets his recall, now he gets his Berserker boots, now he's really strong as a champion, right? Okay. Okay. He could even Q this Gromp, honestly. So he gives a slight leash, but it probably doesn't matter too much. In fact, he could W or Q it, but it's not a big deal. Okay. He auto-attacks that one and he gets everything in one run. In one run, right? Okay. Let's see what happens in here. He pings missing, Twisted Fate. Okay, so now he's allowed to... Yeah, the problem is my my camera is just covering the map where it would be really important to track where Twisted Fate is, right? So now some of the threat is off. Twisted Fate has no more ultimate, so if he's missing, he's not like pressuring him anymore, right? Which means that he's allowed to play more aggressively as ever he wants to without being like randomly teleported on by Twisted Fate, right? That like puts awful pressure of him, right? Okay. So in here there's not much to say, like everybody plays so safely, right? Like everybody is just everybody knows so well the matchup, right? But there are other Aatrox players, of course, in lower ranks that you guys may face. They will do other general mistakes as they are stepping up without having E up when you have your tornado, or they don't have their W up in a trade, or they waste their E when you have ult up and then you get an all-in on him. Like there will be some all-in angles, of course, for you, right? But you got to outplay in some way by sidestepping his Q, by Eing his Q, right? Like there are always ways to like deal with him. By the way, in here he could ban ult. In here, like at the end of the trade, he could ban ult the Aatrox to put more pressure on him. I wouldn't say he would necessarily die in here, but it would place more pressure on the champion itself. And if he would have Ignite, he would die, but I guess it's not a big deal, right? So in here, right, go a tiny bit backwards. Yeah. So in here he goes back to the lane, right? And it was a really good E. He was like fishing for an Aatrox Q, so he E's forward in the sense that he dodges the the higher damage part of his Q and the knock up of it, right? Then what happens, eventually he goes for an auto attack, trade Q, all that, right? And in here he Qs the third Q from Attrox, and in here he could ban, I'm not sure if he had enough time, but in here I do believe there is a ward where he could ban throw in an ultimate when he knocked up, which would extend his ultimate, right? So let's see if he would have enough time. Yes, his tornado, he knocks up. I think yeah, he could ban like click backwards with his ultimate, and then that would put more pressure on the champion, in the sense that when he was knocked up he could then connect an ultimate really easily, and it would take something, he would be like something like this, because the ult damage and the bonus damage from E itself. So I do believe it would be something like that. It would be something like that which would force Aatrox to recall. Now this amount of HP doesn't necessarily forces him to recall, since Yone has no E, so if he ever dives, it's kinda coin flippy, and likely Attrox can kill him as well, right? Well, okay, he got the short trade back though. Could ban even E forward ultimate in there, right? He had like a small angle. So I just look back a tiny bit, right? So in here he gets his tornado, right? And I do believe in here he could ban EQ, but he has to kinda like predict a little bit the Aatrox's movement, right? Because the Aatrox might E, and if he E's, like it's kinda like when Vayne is, right? Like you have to predict where she Qs the Vayne and where he E's like the Aatrox. Oh, we shouldn't. I don't know about that one, cause like if he Qs like that, he could take 1 or 2 tower shots, ideally 1. And I don't think so 1 tower shot would be worth a Q poke on an Aatrox. That's how I see it, right? And it's a bit risky, right? Like we don't see where Twisted Fate is, right? I mean, we don't see it because of my dummy camera, right? I think I will try to move it in a different direction, because it covering a map is just not really ideal, because we don't see where the enemy support is, we don't see where the mid is, we don't see correctly where the jungler could be if it's some ever, right? Just kind of messes up this jungle tracking, right? Okay. Now I'm not sure why does Aatrox have Executioner when Yone has little to... He actually has no lifesteal in his kit. No healing in his kit, and no lifesteal runes or items on Yone. Like, I think it was such a bad part, just like what Yone heals off is D-Blade. Not D-Blade, I mean Blade, Doran's Blade, yeah. I mean D-Blade is Doran's Blade. Okay. But he could ban also though. He could ban camp in a bush and E ult forward, and he would probably get a kill on the Aatrox. But there is some risk out of it, of course. Aatrox may be just gonna recast, so you're gonna waste your time, right? So there is a word where he would just waste his time, of course, so that's completely fine as well. If he chooses the safe play, you can choose the aggressive play as well. It's really just a preference. As well as I said, in lower ranks, like it's more likely people gonna fall for that, so that's why I would like recommend it, right? Damn, now that I turned off the lights, my camera is a bit ugly again. Okay. Okay, so watch out for his movement. He's trying to punish a tiny bit with his Q, but he couldn't really. Okay, he sidesteps it really well. He sidesteps really well every Q, right? So we all know that every Q from Aatrox is quite different, right? It means that every Q has like a different shape, and he was like really distancing himself well around all of those Aatrox Qs, right? Okay. Oh, he misses? He couldn't guess it, right? So he wanted to predict his E, but Aatrox didn't E, right? That's why he throwed it a bit sideways, if people don't know it. So it's not like intentionally he misses them, he's just like trying to guess his movement, guess his E, right? It's a game of guessing, it's a game of predicting. So now the enemy top side is warded from the enemy jungler, but only the tri-brush, right? And he commits, really good, he commits to this. He walks, we all saw it, he kept walking. This is really important. He kept walking. He didn't auto attack. He didn't like bother. He kept walking. For the reason for that is so he can dodge more easily the Q from Atreus. So watch, watch, watch. So in here he gets W, right? He gets auto attack, and watch his movement. He walks out of the W because if he would stay in it, Atreus could time his W in the sense that when Yone goes back in here, his Q connects as well, right? And that's like he loses a lot of HP, right? So he dodged both the W damage, the second part of it, the pull, the knock up from his Q, and the damage by doing this, right? So it's more valuable for you to walk forward when the third Q comes off and you get chained than trying to than generally trying to fight him more, right? He flashes as well. Oh, that hurts. Yeah, I mean, if someone has flash, it's really difficult. Oh, he is forward, predicts. Wait. Oh, that was clutch. He gets the plate as well. That was really clutch. So definitely well played from his part. Let's see what he buys. Mortal reminder, first
Nu
item.
da schimb distracții în familie. Cu Star poți câștiga marele premiu de 50.000 de lei sau 5.000 de lei pe zi.
Well, another red. So he could even rush Mortal Reminder. He has enough money for it. But he can also just build towards his shield bow. I think it's such a cheap item and it's so strong against Aatrox to rush Mortal Reminder that I would say it's fine. But then again, it depends what do you value, of course. Like, if you value a shield and healing more, then it's better, but it takes more time to get there, of course, right? Like Executioner is really good in general against Aatrox, and same as like Mortal Reminder, but you can definitely like get it as a second item, which is what like most of the Yone players do, right? That's definitely fine as well. Now he went for Zeal and Boots because, as I said, mobility usually counters Aatrox, which means that faster you are, the more likely you're gonna be able to run him down and to sidestep his things that he throws at you. Generally, mobility really messes a lot with this champion, right? So he's missing some Qs apparently. Oh, it's really incredible that this fight is close, although Yone is that ahead, right? Now partially that happens because he has no anti-heal, right? Partially, of course, but it's not a big deal. Like in theory, if he had Mortal Reminder on curve, it would be a free win, right? But then again, he does not have the defensive stats, so the defensive stats, the healing, the shield is delayed, and it has more upfront like damage, wave clear, shield bow, so there are advantages and disadvantages, right? Now in there Diana gets pinged because he could get possibly invaded. He ignored it, he recalled instead. I mean, he had to buy his own items, of course, right? He just didn't care like an alpha. Now he went for a crit cloak. I would then sell like refillables for executioners, or instead of crit cloak you could then get executioners. I do believe in the base you could then get executioners over refillables. I do believe they are more valuable, but that's just my opinion, of course. Like the heal cut that he will cut with the executioner probably would be more valuable than the one that he gets from refillable potion. Then again, it gets progressively better into the game getting executioner, right? Okay. Okay. Yeah, by the way, these type of trades are... Oh, type of trades kinda hurt. Right, and then again he had like... so everybody's at the bot fight right now. He's fishing for these healings in here, right? So his trade that he took under tower is not as bad anymore, right, as it was. Now, using 2 refillable potions in a row, it was a bit bad if he's well aware that he's gonna go down and take the plants, because one of the refillables is wasted. You can always like layer it as a second potion, you know. So now he steals every camp. He doesn't care to contribute it. What he will do, he will proxy this wave. Look, he's proxying, and then he will... Oh, he doesn't care about the wave. He could ban even E forward to get the whole wave, but he doesn't care. Like what he could ban do, he just could ban try to check if there is any buff up, but who knows, right? So now he muted everybody apparently, because he doesn't really want to hear anything in his head. Oh, that's a bit messy, of course. Oh, yeah, it's a bit of a bummer. puts a bit more pressure on the Attrox. He gets his shield bow, really important item right now. He could also sit in the bush, you know, which would be tricky. But then again, like, there are things he can do, of course. Now he's just like pushing with his... He's playing a bit safely because he knows that, like, Attrox is playing too confidently. He's 0-3. The guy has 3 kills on Yone, and the Attrox is playing a little too confidently, you know, for his score, right? And now he has the assumption that somebody could be really easily around us, because they already finished with the Drake fight, they already finished with those things, so they could rotate on us anytime soon, right? It's really sus. Sus indeed. Okay. Oh, what is this? Let's see what he does. He picks up these minions, of course. He stacks his tornado. He doesn't last it. And now he's looking to pressure the Attrox. Or just to position safely, right? Now he wants to force this herald. He's really ahead. Attrox is not. So with this priority, we are generally enabled to get these. He's even moving his camera to possibly comprehend this fight, right? I mean, he can't really, but he tried. Maybe he could just E forward, right? He could just E forward. Then maybe fish for an ultimate. I do believe it could possibly connect, but he didn't really like... yeah, he didn't really like bother. Right? If I go tiny bit back, so he queues through the wall, that's really good, right? And then what he could do, he could just like fish for an ultimate, right? Like he could even go this area. If it's not warded, it's good, because probably Twisted Fate will probably greed on the wave after killing Irelia, so going this way it would be a tiny bit better, but it could be warded at the same time, right? Or what he could also do, he could then just go like something like this, ult over the wall, then E forward, get the guy. But I guess it's not really a big deal. I would go this way probably. And even in here, I feel like he could ban E forward to fish for a kill. Like in here, he has like the Zeal mobility, boots, E, and if he is forward, maybe there is a ward where he gets fast enough, right? Like Yone is really fast at this point, that he could possibly connect his yeah, even in here, like he has like a space. I mean, worst case scenario, he could even flash for the Twisted Fate, right? So, but he didn't try. Like I think his E would probably reach the guy. That's how I see it, right? The E ultimate, of course. Okay. Now let's see what he does, right? Okay, so the dog gets blasted. The dog, I mean the red. My dog was kinda like barking around in the background, and I just accidentally said dog instead of red. Okay, he picks up the cannon, of course. And here we don't have enough vision again over the map, so... Okay, he commits into the fight. Definitely good. And this is what happens, right? If we don't necessarily respect the Twisted Fate ultimate, right? He has to flash, yeah. He has to give up so many things, right? Because he wasn't playing defensively enough when the other guy was missing, so you guys can't really see it correctly, but on the map, mid and bot wasn't gankable. The only enemy that was fighting deep in the lane was Yone, so most likely when Twisted Fate was missing, he was rotating for him. And now he had to give up some summoner spells, of course, but now he's rotating for the fight. It's not really a big deal, just a macro issue a tiny bit, right? Okay. Okay. He goes for like a short trade, right? Oh, but he didn't E back in time. He didn't E back in time. He could then Q forward as well, but he could sidestep it as well, the TF, right? Or someone could be around, so it's really sketch. But yeah, sometimes he's a bit greedy in these like tower fights, right? Like if he times his E well, he goes back. Of course, it would be more even. He would heal up from red. He would heal up from his blade. He could still heal up, which is fine. Like it was a decent trade if he wouldn't eat that golden card like that, right? then if he closes the trade in time, it would be like less risky, of course, right? Then he gets like a good short rate on the Twisted Fate, right? Yeah. Okay. Alright, so let's see what he does. He greets for another wave. He ease forward. We can now see he ease forwards. The reason for that is just simply to so he can disengage really easily. He can escape, then he queues out, of course. So if somebody is hovering around in the bot's topside bush, maybe the whole enemy team, who knows, there's so many people missing on the map. Basically he could be dead, so that's the point of being there. As well, he gets a faster recall, he doesn't have to back off completely, right? Okay. There's kind of like a ghost in here in the background. Okay. So now he steps up for this fight. Attrox is topside, right? So Attrox has to TP down. Okay. So the thing about this, right, he had his tornado and he eat forward. The reason for that is just a zoning E. It's just a zoning EQ. So if he EQs something like this, people are not really allowed to step up and try to steal it, right? He could then even sit there until they take Drake, because he could then Q tornado people, right? Q tornado, then he could ult, right? So he was like pressuring with his body, right? He just disallowed people from getting in, because if they try to get in, they get moved up, they get sliced up, they are dead, right? Okay. Okay, let's see what he does. So we take this tower, we are really grouped. Oh, he ults. Oh, he couldn't ult it in time. He could ban time, by the way, his ultimate. Like, the guy didn't play with stopwatch the Twisted Fate. It's just a little bit of a timing mistake, right? Like I do believe he could ban time it a bit more correctly, right? A bit more accordingly to the Twisted Fate ultimate. So I'm not sure. I think the guy is tilted. That's why he went for this play. Like, I'm not yeah. So in here he could ban just simply E, ult forward, or he could just ult. He doesn't. I mean, he can E for more damage. There is no problem with that. But earlier, right? And in here, like before, like you can time your ultimate in the sense that when he arrives, you already knock him up. You're already on top of him, right? And he's already dead to you and to Irelia. Now, because he didn't ult that, right? What happens? This fight gets more extended, and basically, yep. Yep, the Twisted Fate manages to escape. Is he escaping? Yeah, he's surviving. It's just a tiny bit of mistake, but then again, we just turn it over. He dies anyways. Right? Okay. Yeah, it's really good. He actually last hitting all of these things. Getting the towers, getting the inhibitors. Okay. Just picking up basically the top wave, it just simply means that the game is over from now, I suppose, right? Because yep, game's over from now because they just FF'd apparently, right? So as people say, it's a boring matchup. Indeed, it's a boring matchup if people are really high ranked and they know what they are doing, like both of them know the limits of each other, but you can't really play around those long cooldowns that Attrox generally has in lane as Yone. You have usually less cooldowns than he has, right? So if I search Attrox, right, Attrox, you can now see his cooldowns. If I go to the fandom, of course, fandom, right, just like that. Just like that, so we can know like what cooldowns to play around, how much his Q lasts and all that, right? So his passive has a lot of cooldown as well, so he has to first off like auto attack a minion, last hit a minion with his passive, and then we can fight him, right? Then again, his passive also reduces like the cooldown of his Q, so you don't really want to be auto attacked because that just reduces it. But if he auto attacks a minion, it reduces the passive. So if he Qs a champion, it reduces more the cooldown of the passive, I mean, right? The Darkin Blade, we can see the cast time is 0.6. It's varied, of course, the range is always varied. Then again, we can see the sweet spots. We already know the sweet spots, right? Yeah, well, usually 4 seconds. This Q lasts 4 seconds, so if he doesn't Q for 4 seconds again, then it generally won't be up anymore if he doesn't use the rest of his Q, so then we can aim to go for an all-in. Then again, his W, 20 seconds cooldown, which means that it allows him to get a strong all-in on you if you don't have your E, so be careful if you're not positioning between minions, because it can be extremely punishing, especially if he has Ignite, right? Z is a dash, really important, right? So it has 9 seconds cooldown, which means that earlier on it will be a bit harder to play around that with your tornado. Later on it still can be a bit difficult because he builds cooldown, but usually he only maxes his E after his Q, and the only thing that really reduces the cooldown of it will be generally if he builds cooldown earlier on, right? So which means that what you can do with this is that if you have enough attack speed on Yone, you can get your tornado, like you can throw your tornado at him, he can sidestep it with his E. Then the second time you have your tornado up on rotation, his E won't be up, so that's like a good thing to know, right? Definitely important to know how to play around his E or to predict it, right? His ult is just generally gives him lots of movements with AD, healing, all that. It resets on kills, right? You know, it's just something if you can. If you don't win the fight, you just leave it if you can, right? You don't have to necessarily fight an Attrox if he just ults and you can disengage, right? Okay, so that's it now for now about the Attrox guide. Have a nice day, guys.